Well, hello there, and welcome. I'm so glad you've joined me today. I want you to think for a moment about your family, your children, your grandchildren. Think about a recent holiday gathering, or a time you were all laughing together around the dinner table. Those moments are precious, aren't they? They're the stuff that makes a life well lived. Now, I want you to picture that same room, but with an uninvited guest sitting silently in the corner. This guest is large, a little intimidating, and no one wants to talk about it. That guest is the conversation about your will, your estate plan, and what happens when you're no longer here. It's uncomfortable, I know. The mere thought of bringing it up can tie your stomach in knots. You might worry about seeming morbid, or fear that your children will think you don't trust them. Perhaps you're concerned it will look like you're playing favorites, or maybe you just don't have the words to start. So, what do we do with that uncomfortable, silent guest? We often just let it sit there, hoping everything will magically work itself out. But deep down, we know that silence isn't golden, it's a risk. It's a risk to the very peace and harmony we've worked so hard to build for our families. That's why today, we're going to gently but firmly show that uninvited guest the door. We're going to talk about how to have the family finance talk. This isn't about cold, legal documents alone, it's about love, clarity, and protecting the relationships you cherish most. It's about replacing anxiety and uncertainty with peace of mind and family harmony. My goal is to give you 3 gentle ways to start this conversation, to provide you with the very words you can use, so you can approach this not with dread, but with confidence. The first, and perhaps most important, way to frame this conversation is to shift it away from money and towards legacy and love. You see, when we lead with legal terms and asset lists, it can feel cold and transactional. It can put people on the defensive. But when we lead with the heart, with our values and our wishes for our family's future, it changes the entire tone. This isn't about dividing a pie, it's about passing on a piece of your life's work and your care. So, how do we do that in practice? Let's talk about some simple scripts. Instead of saying, "We need to talk about my will," which can sound like a starting pistol for an argument, try opening with something softer and more inclusive. You could say, "I've been thinking a lot about the future lately, and my greatest wish is to make sure things are as easy and clear for you kids as possible. I'd love to share my thoughts with you, so we're all on the same page." Do you hear the difference? The focus is on your love for them, on making their lives easier, not on your own death. Another way to frame it is to connect it to a story or a specific item. This makes the abstract concept of an inheritance feel tangible and personal. For instance, you could say, "I was looking at Grandma's china the other day, and it got me thinking about how certain items carry so many memories. I want to make sure the things that are important to me find a good home with the people I love. Could we find a quiet time to chat about that?" This naturally opens the door to a broader discussion about your wishes without it feeling like a formal business meeting. The key here is to position yourself not as a boss giving directives, but as a parent seeking a collaborative understanding. You are inviting them into the process, not presenting them with a final verdict. This approach respects their intelligence and their emotional connection to you. It says, "Your feelings matter in this. I value your input." This can be especially important if you have specific plans, like leaving a charitable donation or dividing assets in a way that isn't perfectly equal. Explaining the why behind your decisions from a place of love and values. "I've always believed in supporting this cause, and it's a value I hope to pass on." Or, "I want to give your sister a little more help because of her situation, and I know you've always been so understanding," can prevent decades of resentment from taking root. Remember, the goal of this first conversation isn't to review every line of your legal documents. That can come later. The goal is simply to break the ice, to plant the seed of understanding. It's about starting a dialogue that may continue over several conversations. You might find that your children are relieved you brought it up. Often, they are worried about these things too, but they feel it's disrespectful to ask. By you taking the lead, you are giving them permission to talk about the elephant in the room, and you are lifting a burden from their shoulders as well as your own. Now, once you've set the stage with this language of love and legacy, the next step is to think carefully about the setting for this talk. The where and the when are just as important as the what. You can't just bring this up during halftime of a football game or while you're rushing out the door. So, let's talk about how to set the stage for a calm and productive conversation, which is our second gentle strategy. So, we've talked about framing this conversation with the language of love and legacy, moving it from a cold business transaction into a warm, family-focused discussion. But even with the perfect words, if you try to have this talk at the wrong time or in the wrong place, it can all fall apart. You know what I mean? It's like trying to plant a beautiful, delicate seedling in the middle of a storm. The intention is good, but the environment just isn't right for it to take root. That's why our second gentle strategy is all about setting the stage, consciously and carefully choosing the when and the where to give this conversation the best possible chance of going smoothly. Think about it. Our environment has a profound effect on our mood and our ability to listen. If you try to have this chat while your son is stressed about a work deadline, or your daughter is distracted by her kids running around, you're already starting from a place of tension. You deserve to be heard, and they deserve the mental space to truly listen. So, let's be strategic about this. The first rule of thumb is to choose a time of low stress. Don't do this during the holidays, as wonderful as they are, because that's often a pressure cooker of its own with travel, cooking, and a house full of people. Instead, think of a calm, ordinary weekend. A quiet Sunday afternoon can be perfect. The mood is generally more relaxed, and people have the time to be present. And along with timing, you want to think about privacy. This is a family matter, and it should feel intimate and secure. A crowded restaurant, with tables full of strangers who might overhear, is not the ideal spot. There's something about public places that can make people feel put on the spot, or trapped. The best environment is most often a neutral, comfortable, and private space. Your own living room, when it's just you and your children, can be wonderful. Or, if you feel that might carry too much history or the feeling of a summons to the principal's office, consider their home, or even a quiet picnic in a peaceful park. The goal is to find a setting that feels safe and conversation-friendly. Now, this is so important, you must give everyone a heads up. This is perhaps the most overlooked part of setting the stage. You cannot and should not ambush your family with this topic. Imagine if someone sat you down with a serious face and you had no idea what was coming. Your mind would immediately jump to the worst-case scenario. So, take the framing we talked about earlier and use it to schedule the conversation. A simple, warm phone call or text a week ahead can work wonders. You could say, "Hey, I've been thinking about some things I'd like us to be aligned on for the future. Nothing's wrong, I just want to share my thoughts. How about we plan to have a quiet chat over coffee next Sunday afternoon?" This does two crucial things. It gives them time to mentally prepare, which is a sign of respect, and it also prevents them from assuming the worst because you've already reassured them that everything is okay. Once you're in the room together, you can take control of the atmosphere in a very simple, gracious way. Start by setting a positive tone right from the beginning. When everyone sits down, you could begin by saying, "Thank you all for making the time to be here. I know we're all busy, and it means so much to me that we can have this talk." This immediately establishes gratitude and collaboration. Then, state your intention clearly and lovingly, just as we practiced. I want to be clear from the start that this conversation comes from a place of love. My biggest goal is to make sure there's clarity and peace in our family, now and in the future, and to make things easier for you when the time comes. Reinforcing that why is your anchor throughout the conversation. But here's a reality we have to prepare for: emotions can run high. Someone might get defensive, or hurt, or even angry. This is where your role as the parent and the comm center is so vital. If you feel the temperature rising, if a comment comes that feels like an attack, the most powerful thing you can do is not to react, but to listen and validate. This leads us into the third and final strategy, which is all about the mindset you bring to the table. Because after you've chosen the right words and set the perfect stage, the final piece is how you manage the conversation itself when it's actually happening. It's about moving from being a lecturer to being a facilitator, and that requires a very specific set of skills that we all have, but might need to dust off a little. and in many ways, most powerful gentle strategy, moving from being a lecturer to being a facilitator. This is the art of managing the conversation in real time, of listening even more than you speak. Because you've set the stage with love, you've chosen a calm environment, but now you're in the room, and it's live. People have feelings, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay, it's a sign that they care deeply. So, our job isn't to stop the emotions, but to navigate them with grace. Think of yourself not as a king or queen delivering a proclamation from the throne, but as the host of a very important, very caring family meeting. Your primary tool in this role is something we all know but often forget to use in tense moments: active listening. This means when your daughter says, "I just don't understand why we have to talk about this now, it's upsetting," instead of getting defensive or insisting, you lean in with empathy. You could say, "I hear you, and it's completely understandable that this is upsetting. It's hard for me, too. Can you tell me more about what part is most worrying for you?" This simple act of reflecting their feeling and asking an open-ended question does something miraculous. It diffuses the tension. It tells them that you are not just waiting for your turn to talk, but that you are truly trying to understand their perspective. It makes them feel heard, and when people feel heard, they become infinitely more willing to listen in return. This is also where you have to be prepared for questions you might not have answers to, or for suggestions that differ from your plan. And this can feel vulnerable. Your instinct might be to shut it down, to say, "This is how it is, and that's final." But I want to encourage you to lean into a different phrase, one that is both honest and collaborative. That phrase is, "That's a really good point. I need to think about that." Or, "I hadn't considered that perspective. Thank you for sharing it with me." This doesn't mean you are giving up your authority to make your own decisions. Not at all. It means you are respecting their intelligence and their role in the family. You are showing that this is, in fact, a dialogue. And often, their questions can help you improve your own plans, because they might see a practical hurdle you hadn't considered. Now, there may be a moment where things feel like they're getting too heated, or someone becomes too emotional. This is not a failure, it's a signal. And the best thing you can do when you see that signal is to call for a gentle pause. You can say, "I think this is a lot to process for all of us. How about we take a break, get a glass of water, and come back to this in a few minutes?" Or even, "We've covered some really important ground today. Let's let this settle. And we can talk more next week." Giving the conversation room to breathe is a sign of strength, not weakness. It prevents anyone from saying something in the heat of the moment that could cause lasting damage. You are protecting the relationship, which is, after all, the entire point of this exercise. So, we have our 3 gentle strategies: frame it with love and legacy, set the stage with care, and facilitate the conversation with listening and grace. When you bring these together, you are doing so much more than discussing a will or an estate plan. You are giving your family an incredible, lasting gift. You are giving them the gift of clarity, which prevents confusion and conflict down the road. You are giving them the gift of peace, because they won't be left guessing your wishes or wrestling with guilt and uncertainty. And most of all, you are giving them the gift of your example, showing them how to handle difficult, important matters with dignity, love, and open communication. This conversation is one of the most profound acts of love you can offer. It is the final, caring chapter in the story you are writing for your family. It ensures that the legacy you leave behind isn't one of strife or confusion, but one of harmony, understanding, and profound peace. That silent, uninvited guest we talked about at the very beginning? By having this talk, you are not just showing it the door, you are replacing it with a foundation of trust that will support your family for generations to come. I know you can do this. It might feel daunting, but you have the heart and the wisdom to lead your family through it. If you have experiences or your own tips about having these talks, I would be so grateful if you'd share them in the comments below. Let's learn from and support each other. And if this video brought you some peace of mind, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more conversations like this one, designed to help you live your best, most secure life. Thank you for your time, for your care for your family, and for being here. Here's to your future, and to the peace of mind that comes from knowing your loved ones are protected. Your opinions are very valuable to us, so please feel free to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating quality content to inform and inspire you. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.